So I just gotta say that this season has been going really, really well, and I'm thoroughly surprised. Like the first half of this season versus this half, I don't know. I feel like there's just a different level of quality right now, and I'm actually like very, very happy about it. It's very surprising. Um, I don't know. I don't know if like something changed with like who was writing and everything like that, but like each episode since episode 10, I feel like one after the other has just been really, really good, and it's been really good at pushing the story forward, really good at just going deeper into the characters and their pasts, and I don't know, it's just been really, really good. So without further ado, we're just going to talk about episode 12 from season 2. So right away, we get started with a scene that shows Dorian and Alaric. It's like in the past, I think it's like 10 years or so in the past. And what we have is them finding like a murder scene where everyone's charred, or everyone's bodies have been charred, so clearly there was a fire, and one of the victims is holding a pin from the Salvatore school, so it has to. What's implied is that it's a Salvatore school student that did this, and so yeah, that's kind of the first scene that we have. And it was like a good way to tee up something from the past. It's kind of like using flashbacks to, I don't know, like comment on what's happening right now, or you get pieces as you move along in the story, so that you find out things in the present and you find out things in the past that have affected the present and stuff like that. So it really reminds me of the Arrow format on some level, because they're using like flashbacks to kind of say like this causes whatever is happening right now, or this is why things are the way they are. So yeah, it was very interesting to see that parallel in my mind of like different shows on the same network using a similar formula. Um, Beyond that, like the way that they introduced the three other students, how they're also like they were around 10 years ago, and Rick pretty much thinks that they have done like they have murdered these students because these were the kids that they were supposed to meet. And yes, he's not wrong, they did kill these students, but it was purely um out of fear. They were scared students and they freaked out. um and they were being treated like crap, and it really like it wasn't like they came out and attacked these students with no remorse. But the way that Rick saw it, because of how much he's seen at this point through all of his experiences, like he's been a vampire hunter for years. He was a vampire himself. He he's done like so many things. He's been dead, he was resurrected, whatever else. All those experiences have kind of set him into this mindset of what he thinks is like people are capable of as supernaturals. And he immediately assumes that they are hiding this or lying to him because they don't care. And we realized towards the end of the episode that wasn't the case. I mean, one of the girls, like the vampire, she turned her humanity off because she could not deal with the situation. That she murdered someone, and it was actually someone that she had a crush on and everything else. But like Rick Rick's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of how like people that are a lot older, of like an older generation, they like, and this just happens with everyone over time, through their experiences, they view the world in a certain way a lot of the time, and that can prevent them from making certain connections or not jumping to conclusions in certain situations. Not everyone, but it does happen, and this is kind of like one of those scenarios. Like all of his experiences point to, oh, this was very clearly done by this werewolf, this witch, and this vampire, and though he is correct about that, he does not realize the motivations. And as a teacher, he was not able to figure that out, and instead he kind of fails with what he's trying to do. He doesn't help these students. He pretty much just packs them up and sends them to a prison world to be forgotten, um, which really, really sucks. um, and it kind of shows a failure on Rick's part as a teacher who's trying to help people, how he really did fail thoroughly in this situation. So yeah, and we actually see that in that these kids have been here for 10 years with time standing still pretty much. So the students look the same, including the werewolf and the witch, who normally would have aged by now. And we realize that they cannot be killed because they're in a prison world, they'll just keep coming back and being resurrected. And what we know is they also released Kai, and what we are thought to believe at the beginning of the episode is that they've just been hunting Kai constantly. Um, and obviously, like, this stuff, like, it was all a trick and everything like that. And we eventually have Kai, like, reveal his true colors. He double crosses everyone and makes it back through the Malivore pit, which is kind of very clever because it shows that how manipulative he is. He uses all the information that he has while he's with his niece Josie, to his advantage, and he pretty much finds his own way out of the prison world without using the Ascendant. So that was very interesting to think about. So yeah, again, they like really played up the, I don't know, they just wrote this story very, very well because of how they show the backstory of the three students that were trapped here, and really how they came into becoming what Rick saw them as monsters, as people who have used their power in a terrible way. But in fact, it was just their kids, and they freaked out in a situation. It was the full moon. One of them was already super on edge, and they were kind of tricked by the other people of the town and called freaks. And one of them threw something at the wolf, and he freaked out. And from there, the other two students had very little choice in that moment. They had to decide, were they going to let these people go and potentially ruin their lives, or were they going to stop them? And even then, they were very hesitant, clearly, and it was very traumatic for them. So that was like a very cool way to go about doing that. Yeah, and again, it shows how long Rick has been at this. I mean, he clearly has his own issues. He always did, even in the beginning when he was first introduced. He was pretty much an alcoholic. So it was very cool to see like a younger side of Rick, that we like him as more of a hunter type of mode. And he really goes back into that once he's in the prison world. He's just like attacking people left and right, trying to survive, trying to save his kids. And I thought that was very interesting. It was a side that we haven't really seen to Rick as much in this show, because he's not really the focus anymore of the series. And with that, also, the way that he dealt with Sebastian with the rest of this actually surprised me, because the whole reasoning, I think that, from my perspective, as to why he sent the three kids to the prison world was because they were children. But Sebastian's over 100 years old. And I feel as though it would have made a little bit more sense if Rick had just killed him when he attacked the other person back in, I think, episode 10. But I don't know. They didn't really explain why he decided to just send him to the prison world instead of actually just killing him outright. Because he did stab him with a stake. So, like, he could have done it. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the whole story for the most part. There's the whole thing with Sebastian dousing, or is dousing the right word? I don't know. Basically putting his blood into one of the drinks that he gives Lizzie, and being like, oh, you need to be turned so that you can never be hurt. We can both live here forever, and you'll just be a heretic, and I'll be a vampire, and we'll both be immortal, and everything like that, and everything will be great. And it's kind of like this moment where you really realize how crazy Sebastian is, because you realize that he has a lot of problems, he has a lot of issues, but he calls Josie at one point by the other witch that Sebastian lost over 100 years ago before being desiccated. And you realize like just how much trauma there is in his mind. So I thought that was very, very cool. Overall, like, you get to see another side of Rick. You get the dynamic of like two basically like mentally unstable people who are in a relationship together, and really what that entails. And then you have Josie and Kai traveling around, with Josie ultimately deciding to break the sand clock that's keeping all the dark magic that she's stored away, and basically bringing that back into her to get the power to leave the prison world. But yeah, overall, this episode was like really, really well done. I loved seeing Kai back, because I just love his character. I mean, he's basically he's a psychopath. So that's like always cool to see, like, someone like that on screen interacting with other people and realizing that he always just has a different angle. So bringing like a character back from like the original show and kind of seeing how he interacts with other people in the new show and everything like that. And I don't know, just the dynamics that he has with his niece throughout the episode was very cool to see. And just reminding us of his intellect and him escaping to Malivore and coming out right in front of the Necromancer. We kind of get a hint that, like, oh, clearly something's going to happen. Like, these two are going to be working together at some point in the future. And we'll just have to stay tuned to see what happens with that. So, yeah, overall, episode was really, really good. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.